Hi guys, I'm Brad and this is the Great Hollywood Rewrite. This is the podcast where we take some of cinema and TV's most troublesome titles and have a little poke around under the hood. Today I'm joined by John. Hi John.
Hello.
Looking forward to this one, as I know we're divided on this film. The film we're going to look at today is Godzilla from 1998. There's been many Godzillas since this one, but we've decided to go for the 98 one as it is a divisive film. So before we get stuck into taking on an atomically mutated but heavily pregnant Komodo dragon monster thing, check out our website at thescriptdepartment.net. You can find us on social. You can find us on all the good places you get your podcasts. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. It all helps us out. And you can also buy us a coffee. So if you want to contribute to more pieces of quality content like this one, then you can donate to the cause. So, John, this was written or co-written by Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, and directed by Emmerich. And he was true to form on this. He's blowing a lot of stuff up. So there was a slight lack of substance in this film. I know, I remember watching it and I loved it, but now I've rewatched it and I'm like, oh, this is a bit different to how I remember it when I was a teenager. What's your experience of this film?
I love this film. I don't care what anybody says. It's a great kids-friendly monster movie. And I don't think the film is trying to be anything more than that. It is the most 90s thing on the planet. And that does kind of go against it as well. I mean, I've got IMDb open. I'm just looking at the poster here. And the poster, I always laugh at the poster and how absurd it is because the leg is bigger than a skyscraper and it's like wider than 3 skyscrapers and everything. If you look at it, everything is out of proportion. And it's just like this. Imagine how big it would actually be in relation to that. It's the most absurd kind of over the top thing. But then I know exactly where this film is coming from. This is the successor to the Jurassic Park franchise when they thought Spielberg wasn't going to do any more Jurassic Park movies. You know, the T-Rex coming to San Diego at the end of The Lost World was borrowing from Godzilla style movies. And then, that almost gave the studios permission to feel like they could then make a Godzilla movie to continue the giant walking lizards thing. And it's why we have baby Zillas and it's why we have all that kind of stuff as well in this, because it's clearly like, can we get Velociraptors in here too, and tick all those Spielberg boxes. Roland Emmerich is, I've seen him in interviews and things. He seems like the loveliest, most fun guy to work with, but he is very much a kind of a broken record in terms of his ideas. It's very much destruction of property, and that's it. And it just seems to escalate as much. And he's now even left planet Earth altogether. He's destroying the moon now. He's destroyed everything at this point. So
he's consistent and he knows what he's doing. He knows what he is.
Yeah. He knows exactly what he can do, and I guess go for it. He's making his money, but you know what? Put Godzilla in his hands because he'll do the destruction well. I think this is a fun film. There are parts of this I really love. There are parts of this I wish were in Gareth Edwards' Godzilla film. There's only so much of kind of hiding behind closed doors and perspective shots that we can get from that Godzilla movie before it gets a little boring. And I'm sorry to say, I wish there was a bit more Godzilla in that Godzilla movie. There is no shortage of Godzilla in this movie. And I just think if you're I don't know, whatever I was, a 10, 12, I think I was 12, 13 or something like that, your old kid watching this with your father in the cinema, this is a hell of a fun experience, So I don't know. I mean, Jar Jar Binks wasn't the greatest thing, but he was great for kids, and I kind of feel like that's what they were trying to do with this movie too. So I don't know. What was your experience with it? Like, did you...
So I loved this thing when I was younger. I mean, 98, I was 16, 17, that sort of age. And I remember that the trailers used to come out a lot sooner, a lot earlier than the film. And there'd be like specially shot trailers and all this kind of stuff. And I remember it. I can't remember what I was seeing at the cinema. Might have been Jurassic Park. I don't know. Probably wasn't. It was probably a bit too late. But they were in a New York museum, and there was a really stuffy guy talking about the T Rex, going, the T Rex is the biggest thing that ever walked on our planet, and then this massive foot just comes through and crushes it, and everyone in the cinema was like, yeah, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. And then again, I liked the build up, I liked the music. Now I'm thinking, oh my god, they use Kashmir. What are they doing? But like as a teenager, I was like, yeah, this is cool. And I watched the film and I liked it. My buddy had it on VHS. We used to watch it, and I quite liked it. But now, if as a professional writer, now looking at it, I'm like, oh, ooh, what happened here? Like, this is not the thing that I loved, or I thought I loved when I was a teenager. I loved the spectacle. I loved the effects, which didn't age super well. They didn't age badly. I've seen worse effects in stuff of this era, but I don't know. I feel it hasn't aged well. As far as the script and the spectacle of it is concerned.
I think there is some great atmospheric stuff in this movie. I think the moments where the first of all, the opening montage is really cool. Like if you're a kid watching this with no understanding of the kind of cultural significance of Godzilla in Japan, its relationship to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and so on, in terms of its ideas, like this was mind blowing to me. I was like, I knew what atomic tests in the Pacific were. I knew that stuff happened, and just kind of barely, at that age. But I was watching this thinking, this makes sense. Oh my god, there could actually be I knew what Chernobyl was because where I used to live in Ireland, there was lots of children used to come over from Chernobyl every year to get a kind of a kind of clean air and kind of a healthier way of life for a while and things like that. And a lot of orphans would come over and be situated in with families and so on. And so you're always hearing about. I was always hearing about nuclear catastrophe, the possibilities of a nuclear disaster, and the fallout from Chernobyl and so on. So for them to be citing Chernobyl in this movie, for them to be showing this footage of atomic tests in the Pacific and so on, this all made sense to me on a level that Jurassic Park made sense to me on. I remember the feeling when I saw the DNA animation explaining how they built the dinosaurs, even though it's scientifically not possible. I think I don't think DNA can last more than 100 years or something like that. I think I read that, but just it doesn't matter. In that world, it works, and the science was sound, and it felt sound to a 6-year-old or whatever I was at the time watching that film. And I thought, oh my god, I get it. And I thought, if you can explain that to a 6-year-old and make them excited about science and about the and make those dinosaurs credible, you've done your job well. And I thought Roland Emmerich made Godzilla feel like a credible possibility to a kid in that film, citing things like Chernobyl and so on, and just giving enough examples that this kind of happens in nature, the earthworms in Chernobyl and so on. And you're thinking, okay, this works. And I thought that was really well done. I thought the fishing trawler being attacked,
That's cool.
I thought that was really like, I was like grabbing onto the arms, the armrests in the cinema. I remember at that moment, that felt like a horror movie almost. The idea of the guy fishing in New York and it coming out of the water, I thought was, wow, like that's run, man, you gotta run. Like it was really good, really effective. And then I just love the whole use of rain, nighttime. He's using the tunnels to hide under the island. The topology of Manhattan and New York as a whole felt like it was well thought through. Again, how accurate it is, I don't know, but it felt like they had put some thought into that. And then the idea that all of this was for purpose, that it's because she's nesting, and that she's pregnant. I thought, okay, whether it works out in the end, whether the execution is good or not, I thought this isn't just wanton destruction. There's a purpose here. It isn't just this thing has come out and is just like roaming the landscape and just tearing down buildings. There's a purpose here she's trying to feed. And suddenly I kind of care about Godzilla all of a sudden, you know? And so I don't know. I even just I one last thing, the use of Madison Square Garden, and they Hank Azaria, just that is his holy ground. This is his hallowed ground. And oh my god, they're gonna nuke the garden.
Get nuke the garden.
I thought it was like I thought I care about that because you now care about that. So I think there are stuff in it that work really well. I wouldn't like to change those things, but I understand that there's so much 90s tradition working its way into it. It does feel like an episode of Friends at times. You almost feel like the characters from Friends are going to walk out of the coffee shop and look up at the monster walking around. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, what are your talking points?
I mean, what you were saying about, I agree. There's like some classic 90s hooks in there that are like, yes, okay, great, I'm in. But I think everything you said about Godzilla, Bong Joon-ho did in The Host, and that was an amazing film. That was a really, really good film, and the creature in it coming out of the water, and it just everything it could have been. And that was a tiny little thing. And I know this divided fans, but or most Godzilla fans hated it. Most hardcore Toho Godzilla fans hated it. I watched those films. I had to set my video player up to record it at 2 a.m. on the Creature Feature, I think it was on Channel 4, every Saturday. And just even setting up the video, that was like my own hero's journey. That was my first exposure to the hero's journey, because you don't know if it's going to work or not. So that, and it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was, the size of him was different, and it wasn't Godzilla. I think that was the issue. It was a good enough film, I think, on its own as like a disaster monster movie. But yeah, I think Tahoe actually renamed that version of it Zilla. They don't call it Godzilla. The Sony one, they won't refer to it as Godzilla,
but
they call it Zilla.
Do you think that it's just that was what happened in the 90s? We're just taking the name here and the general idea, it's a monster destroying a city, and we're just gonna go with we just go with it now. We don't care. Like I do feel like that's more yeah, I mean, I totally get that, but I understand that there is this kind of diehard fan base for Godzilla as a brand, as a franchise, but I've never felt that Godzilla was this that it's so deep and so complex an idea that this would be like just the biggest spit in the face to it either. You know what I mean? Like I get why there are Tolkien fans who don't like Rings of Power, because we're talking about this rich, complex universe with complex lore and backstory to it that is so fickle and so easy to be disrupted. And I get that. I don't get how you can be so protective over what is essentially like the actual accurate representation of Godzilla as done by Gareth Edwards is so slow and lumbering that he had to do these special kind of strategic camera angles and things like that to just concentrate on his foot, because the less we see, the less the illusion will be broken.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the mechanics and science of a creature that size on this planet don't add up.
But it doesn't make for good filmmaking, though, because let's be honest, Godzilla in movies has always been a man in a suit who looked ridiculous. It looks silly. I'm sorry, it does. Like you talked about visual effects that don't stand the test of time. The man in the suit has never stood the test of time. And again, like, more power to you if you love those films. I'm not taking that away, but if we're going to judge this film by these kind of measurable standards, surely there are more criminal efforts in previous Godzilla movies and subsequent Godzilla movies. Because again, even the Gareth Edwards film, which I think is a masterpiece, don't get me wrong, has to really pick its moments to show the creature because it would otherwise be a very boring creature to look at.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying. I think there are. It's almost impossible to compare the early works of Tahoe to the works of Tolkien. Like you can't, it's not really the same thing. But there is a following who wanted something and they didn't get it. I mean, if you're going to make it into a rip roaring kaiju fight, then you go to Godzilla versus Kong. Yes, we had to wait 20 or 30 years to get that thing, but that's amazing. Like, just for a ridiculous, massive thing, it is brilliant. You know, I don't. It's not going to win any Oscars for its script,
No, and
but
I have to say, I love. I was kind of hot and cold about Gareth Edwards' film. I do think it's a masterpiece, but I don't think it ticked every box for me.
mm,
Wasn't enough Baby Zillas in it. But the I loved Godzilla 2. I know some people weren't so big on that one,
mm,
but I love that. I thought that was amazing. I just thought that is everything I've ever dreamed of in a monster movie.
yeah,
And then and Kong Skull Island, I think, is just, it's like the best island monster movie
yeah,
since
that is good fun. I
since
think,
Jurassic
yeah,
Park. I think that is such an incredible movie. And quite terrifying as well, the way the creatures kill these soldiers and everything. It's quite brutal, actually. Um, I loved Kong versus Godzilla versus Kong, or whatever it's called. I thought that was great as well. So I am a big fan of these characters, of this lore, of this kind of this type of universe, let's say. But I'm also a fan of this one too. So I don't know. Do your worst, Brad. Do your
no,
worst.
and you know, I like I say, I was a fan of this watching it, and when it came out, and years beyond. But I think revisiting it with the eyes of a screenwriter, I think we can do some stuff with it. I
Yeah,
think we can
yeah.
probably twiddle and tweak this thing. So I've got a few talking points to go through. So the first one is the rating. It's the same rating as the some of the Godzilla stuff that's come out recently, but ratings have slid to mean something else. Like a low end PG rating in the 90s is almost like it's not quite universal now, but you know, it's there is a loss of threat somewhere in this, that they rated it to sell toys effectively. What feels like could have happened here. So there's very little death or threat in the movie. Yes, arguably some people definitely die in that helicopter, but you know we're very detached from that. It doesn't feel like there's a threat there. Godzilla himself, if we're going to go, you know, if we're going to be purist about it, he's very small and he's very vulnerable. Like they get him with a few missiles and he's gone, you know. And the original Godzilla was quite terrifying at times because he was just indestructible. We were insignificant to him.
Mm.
We could not. He barely even understood we existed. You know, he was, yeah, he was just massive. So this one was a bit different. There's an environmental thread of almost all of the Godzilla films, the Tahoe ones, that we are our own worst enemy. We are bringing this planet to the brink of collapse. And I think now more than ever, that is, yeah, I guess now more than in the 90s, but even in the 90s more than in the 70s, it was more relevant. You know, the environmental movement was gaining much more pace, and it doesn't really have much of that in there. It has like a loose nuclear aspect to it, but we could have used that a bit more. I mean, like you know, the idea of a nuclear meltdown is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, but there wasn't really much of that went on. So I think there's probably space to bring more of that aspect into it. Um, the protagonists, or the protagonist, felt a little bit, I guess, unassuming.
Nick
He,
Totopoulos.
Totopoulos, yeah. I mean, I didn't dislike him as a person. I was like, he's a nice guy, but we it felt like he could have been a brilliant awkward guy instead of just like, oh yeah, it's the worm guy. Look, he does a bit of science sometimes and he guesses some stuff. It didn't. His character didn't feel like a solid protagonist. It was a bit like, oh, there's a slightly apologetic protagonist, and then if you mix in the weird love story, I don't know, it felt he was a bit vanilla. Yeah, like she was he was dumb, she was fickle, and it was like, why was that there? Like, did we need that it sort of cheapened it a little bit. And his when he science stuff, when he was doing his sciencing, it was a bit like, oh, I'm just going to try this pregnancy test. Oh, well, it says one thing. That must be the truth. And it's like, is that how science works? I don't think that's how science works. And then the last one, I know you like the Zillas. I don't dislike the baby Zillas, but do they need to be there?
No, I don't. I don't. If I had a choice, I wouldn't have them in the film. But it's. I do think at a certain point, like that third act escalation, I don't know what else you would do. And maybe that is the challenge in this episode for us is what's the third act escalation without the baby Zillas then? Because short of it being another Godzilla comes out of the ground, I do think you need some other creature in the Godzilla world because I don't think that's enough to carry it for the rest of it unless there's I don't know. Yeah, I felt like yeah, I need an escalation here. It's got to be creature related, so why not do this? Um,
Yes, I think there was definitely something. It felt a bit fillery to me. Oh yeah, make Godzilla pregnant and have some Jurassic Park Velociraptors running around. Yes, it does leave a big hole in the third act, and we do have a choice here. We can leave them in if we want. If we get stuck, surely we can just retreat, plop some baby Zillas in there, and have done with it. But I don't know. I reckon we'll come up with something as we work through it. So going back to the first point, the threat in this film, although we do have a lot of scenes of like cars being crushed and people in between the toes of Godzilla and helicopters being downed and stuff, how do you think they went far enough with this in relation to the idea of what Godzilla is?
well, again, I gotta ask, what's our aim here? Are we trying to make a kids movie, or are we trying to make are we trying to make a kids movie that sells toys because that's what the studio wanted to do with this, or are we trying to make a Gareth Edwards film?
I care not for selling toys today. Let's do the kick-ass Godzilla. Let's just make a kick-ass Godzilla
Okay, all
film
right,
that
okay.
everybody is going to enjoy, and possibly if a kid watches it, they'd be terrified.
Okay, so yeah, you gotta have someone struggling to pay their rent, and a landlord is being an absolute dick to them, and they're about to be evicted, and they leave the building to go off to work, and when they come back, the whole building has been destroyed, their whole home is lost, and the landlord is dead. And it's got to be that kind of stuff that goes on. So I just made that up off the top of my head. I don't know.
I like that. Was
But
good. That was good. That was a great '90s scene as well. We're sticking with the '90s feel. I like that. So yeah, we can go as hard as we want with this stuff. I think the idea that Godzilla would almost not understand we exist on a level. It's like ants. It's like we're like fire ants biting his feet. Like that is what we are to him, and that is traditionally what people have been. I mean, the next point will feed into this is the idea that we are destroying the planet, and the question is always: is Godzilla nature's chosen way of equalizing the damage to the planet and wiping us out effectively? Um, the idea that might be what's happening, but more on a more, I guess, osmotic level. It's an organic. He's not coming here going, I'm going to kill that one and that one and that one. He's just been released as a raging monster. Like, I mean,
okay, all right, okay. Do you want to just go full on so that this is like the Godzilla threat here is on a like just an enormous scale, like head in the clouds almost kind of thing. Not literally that big, but it's like we're talking even bigger than what Gareth Edwards' Godzilla was like. Just this absolute just thing that's just come out of the deepest depths of the ocean, where it's been resting, and yeah, woken by nuclear testing and all that kind of stuff, and it is nature's leveling. And yeah, I don't like that there's a city here. I'm going to destroy it.
mm, how's about the warming of the because I think warming of the oceans would potentially be maybe that's a more current thing to get in there. That if we are going to go, oh, it's human influenced. You've just had an idea, haven't you, John? I can see your finger in the air. What is it?
Set in 1998, obviously, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it is they are beginning to start talking about climate change in a serious way. Like, you said that, yeah, it was on the tips of people's tongues at that point, but it wasn't the thing people were concerned about. Aerosol cans were still they didn't have people were still happy to just,
CFCs and all that. Yeah,
yeah, do their thing without worrying about. I mean, they're still doing their thing without worrying about the climate, but we really didn't care as much back then. I mean, people barely even recycled as much, and it was just you you have a you have a chance here to have the characters start talking about it, and that can be your scientific kind of theory, and we as an audience will kind of understand what, we're already ahead of the game in terms of the conversation, but how fascinating it is that we're watching what is essentially I use the word loosely, a period drama, and they are talking about these things and it's like they're catching on to these things.
yeah,
It's almost like
yeah. I like that. I like
yeah.
that. I mean, how's about he comes out of an ice shelf that's collapsed and melted? We wouldn't necessarily. I think seeing that scene would be ridiculous, but we could see evidence that this thing that we don't know. I don't dislike how how late we come into the process. There's footprints somewhere. He hasn't hit a city yet. I mean, it feels weird that he would have been on land and no one would have seen him because he's a massive monster. So maybe it's something in the ocean. Maybe he's tripped tsunami alarms or something, and
I just literally meant you thought he tripped.
He trips in
the ocean, then
causes a tsunami, and we're wiped out. Maybe he trips tsunami alarms or something, or a seismic alert, and they find out that he came out of an ice shelf as it fell off.
Because I always love when the way that in every Godzilla movie, it seems, where they, all the big ones, where there's some kind of attempt at cover up, or there's some attempt at kind of explaining it away so that you don't ask too many questions. And I loved the idea, like, that Bryan Cranston is like, no, what happened in essentially Fukushima? They're obviously mirroring that incident. It's it wasn't what you said it was. It doesn't make sense. And I just love the idea of people, the arrogance of the governments of the world to think that they can put a lid on this, or that they can try and hide it from the public. I think that there's something very powerful about a statement like that, of uncovering that kind of arrogance. So I love the idea, like, yeah, it was a tsunami. Yeah, it was, and we really have to figure out what we're going to do to stop this. And maybe bringing somebody in before this thing goes public. Like, we need you to find this creature soon, before we've ever seen the creature. And then you're building up our expectations in the minds of the audience. Like, we know he's in there somewhere, or we know he's hiding up in the furthest reaches of the North Pole right now, or whatever the case may be, because the climate is changing or something. And we need you to track, and we need you to help us find, and we need you to figure out a way to help us stop it. And we haven't seen anything yet as an audience member. We've only seen hints. We've only seen evidence of scale and evidence of destruction. And so we are in the same shoes as the protagonist then, waiting to.
So we're going to go first act without Munster, right?
I think
can be brave, but like I think that could be quite interesting.
I think that could be cool, but you got to pay it off then big time later. Like, where like second and third act, you will get your entire, because Jurassic Park did it, showed us a little bit of a dinosaur early on, and didn't show us the Brachiosaurus then until just near the end of Act 1, really, wasn't it? And I think you could do something like that where we're seeing hints of destruction all the way. And then Jurassic Park did it again then, because as soon as they went out on the road, there were no dinosaurs again for a while. There was a 6 Triceratops, brilliant, like great in the movie. But, John Hammond is like, ugh, there's no movement here. There's no dinosaurs, no entertainment value here. And that was a very brave thing to do when you think, but Jaws does it as well. We're not seeing the creature. I think Gareth Edwards played that card a little too much because we're able to see the dinosaur, but you're now depriving us of it. Or we're able to see Godzilla, but you're depriving us of it. That's different from our protagonist not being able to see the creature. If you had made a rule in Godzilla that we will only ever see the creature from the perspective of a human being down on the ground, then okay, fine. But you break that rule all the time when it
Mm,
suits for the spectacle moments. So why not just break it now and show us the big fight?
yeah.
I think if you made a rule where actually we're going to see it from the way the characters will see it on the ground,
Mm.
or we're going to see it like the way the characters in Jurassic Park see dinosaurs.
Absolutely. I think
Um,
there's something interesting in the perspective of it that can make it a lot more terrifying.
mm,
So if the entire first act is them trying to find out what it is, where it is, and not really understanding how big it is, I think the size thing is always a thing with Godzilla. Like whether it's whether it's one of the Tahoe films where they know what it is, or whether it's another monster, or one of the films where they're not as familiar with Godzilla and it just comes out and they're like, "What? I don't understand how it can be that big." So the thing coming out of the Hudson, great, but it's a river. It's a river. It's an inlet. Like it would be way if it was that big, it would be out of the water before it even got to the coast. So if we're going to go really big and we're going to be really true with it, we either cheat that and just say, "Oh no, it's a deep bit," or I don't know if you ever saw Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, the anime. There was a trilogy. I think it was on Netflix, and the first one was I absolutely. I mean, the third one was. Well, they all had their good bits, but the first one there was a couple of scenes in it that made Godzilla feel terrifying, like absolutely terrifying, and it was his size in the distance. So you could see him coming. You couldn't hear him yet. You could just see this thing, enormous shape on the horizon, and he was miles away, but you could see him because he was that big. And people would be like, "Oh my god!" And then the sirens would go off, and he'd take a long time to get there because he's miles away. He's got a big step, but he's a slow lumbering beast. But it's just the sheer size of the thing. I think to have the first shot as have him as overwhelmingly big, not just a big monster crawling out of the river. He's un. It's you can't understand how big he is because he's coming out of the water on the horizon, miles away, and he looks large. And that is the I've when I've seen that in films before, I felt terrified for the people in it. I've been like, oh my god, it it's coming, and you can't get away from it because it's that big. Um,
I think
so
I think absolutely do something like that and link it with a character who's already seen it, but just has there's no record of it. Like if again thinking borrowing from Jurassic Park, Robert Muldoon is one of the most valuable characters in that movie because he is the one who sells you on the deadliness of the velociraptors. He is one of the greatest hunters in the world. I've hunted everything that can kill you, and these things terrify me. Like
clever girl.
yeah, and yeah, and what a compliment to pay. And I think you need a character like that. It's like well, so none of you have seen this thing. Jim over there saw it, and then when you go to Jim is saying I saw it, and how close did you get to it? I was about 10 miles away from it, and you're like, sorry, what? You saw it? How do you know what? Like 10 miles? Like yeah, I was 10 miles away from it, and I could see it clearly.
So is there a Jaws
You know.
aspect to this that
I
we're
think there's a Jaw.
uncovering?
I think there's a Jaws Jurassic Park aspect. I think the bravery of Jurassic Park to give us a dinosaur movie with very little dinosaurs, and I think the idea of seeing the shark without seeing the shark. I think seeing the evidence of the shark is a big part of it as well. And I think the rule of keeping it from the perspective of the people hunting it rather than seeing it from certain spectacles, because you can have that, like what you're saying. I can imagine that in my mind now that we're in the North Pole somewhere. I don't know why we're up there for some reason, but in the distance in a blizzard, you can see this thing like 10 miles away, this shadow cutting through the blizzard.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, nice. He's going
yeah.
for warmer waters.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, something maybe. Yeah, and maybe I don't know. But I just pulled that idea out of my head. The North Pole. But I think absolutely good. Like that should be our first image, and I think it should be this thing where now our protagonist understands, like Nick understands, like I've seen it the way you saw it. Oh my god! And then maybe they both together will see it up close at some point if they're lucky. You know.
So
Um,
before we get on to Nick, because I think getting him right is going to be really important to this, because tonally that the bumbling Totopoulos isn't going to fit here. Um, but the what is the monsters? If it does it have wants and needs? Like what is it doing? Because at least in the 98 we've got it's come to lay a clutch of eggs, which doesn't really add up. I'm going to go and lay it in a place where there's a
stadium.
popular
Yeah, that's a
stadium.
bowl. It's like a nest. Yeah, like that's the logic. Is that, well, a stadium is kind of like a nest for giants, isn't it? So so it's like God, we're so arrogant as human beings. We brought about our own destruction by building sporting arenas.
A basketball nest.
Like it's just um
so so
yeah.
we've touched on this idea that the warming of the seas has released this thing, and by proxy, it's going to help stop the acceleration, because you're not going to stop warming because we're in a warming cycle, but you can. We are over accelerating that warming, which is the issue. So it's going to stop whatever's over accelerating it just by proxy. It's not like intelligent
Yeah,
design; it's
just
just going to
goes.
happen.
It goes to the
But
city
why?
where the heat is. Like
Yeah.
there's energy coming from that city. Destroy that city. You
So
know.
what?
Yeah.
Why does it end up in New York? Is the question, or is New York the right place? If it's come from the Arctic, yeah, it could have gone North Atlantic Drift and up the west coast, east coast of America, and yeah, that could be a thing. But it's like, what's it doing why New York?
Do New
So it's
York because in Canada they would have been better at the at no, they're not actually, are they? They're like ridiculous coal burners in Canada, aren't they? And fossil fuels and things like that, aren't they? I was going to
yeah,
say,
but
like,
I think the
you could do this
population per
wonderful
capita's
you could do this
lower.
wonderful rivalry between America and Canada, and this, where it's like it came to America for a reason, because America has all these like ridiculous climate change laws or anti climate change laws and things like that. Like
It was political.
Trump is pulled out of the climate accord, and so Godzilla has come to get revenge. It's like, there's your movie right there. But okay, I think it has to be New York, or it has to be some city that. I can't
Mm.
imagine an American studio is going to want to set their film in Toronto when they could have set it in New York. So I don't know. I just feel like might as well go with New York. Although, I guess here's my question to you: does the destruction of New York in post 9/11 America, is that a bit too triggering? It probably is.
Well, are
Um,
we 98 or are we not
well, I feel
98?
like we're making this movie in 2022, though. Are we?
I don't know. I don't know. We can stay 98 if you want.
Okay,
We
okay.
do.
All right, let's just keep it same setting, same kind of ingredients, but let's mature it a bit. So, okay, we'll do New York. So, um, but I'd say we don't have to overthink why. I think it just needs to be he's come to these cities that, like, it's almost like, we just bought a house recently, and there was a nest, like an insect nest on the wall, because no one had lived there for a while, and like on the outside of the wall, and so we just got rid of it, like, when we were doing the renovations, we just got rid of it, like you would, it was like a dead nest, and I just thought Godzilla's just going to see this city as a nest, isn't it? Like, it's just a nest of pests or something, and so we're just
Yeah.
just get rid of it, like stomp it out. And I wonder, is that actually the thing? Like, this is probably causing me to wake up. Yeah, get rid of it.
Yeah. I
And
mean, is he going to the biggest sources of heat? Is he just a heat seeker? He's literally heat woke him up. It's getting too warm. He doesn't like it, and he's going to crush those cities. So he's go. Maybe it's not just New York. Maybe it's global. Maybe he goes to a couple of different places. We're going to blow the budget a little bit here, but I mean, it was like 130 million anyway in
yeah, but
'98.
Roland Emmerich is
Jeez.
still directing this, and so we're just rewriting it. He's directing it, so he's going to want to destroy more cities. So
Yeah, he's going to be happy with
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
sort of like a Pacific Rim
yeah,
sort of thing.
go for it.
He's traveling to various cities. You can even track it down.
Yeah, you know
the
what?
North Atlantic
Wipe out
drift.
Toronto, wipe out everything, and then we get to New York. So it's fair game for everybody, and
Yeah.
we haven't just targeted anyone in particular. Fair game for everybody. You're all as bad as each other, so you all go. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I think there are some. Yes, I think that could make it easier for us to give him a reason. He's attacking the cities that are on the coast. I mean, it would have to be Toronto. You can't get to Toronto, can you? It'd have to be like Nova Scotia or something, or
yeah.
there are.
He'll go in. He'll go in. He'll get Toronto, and then he'll make his
He'd
way
have
down
to
to New York.
walk. He'd have to walk that hundreds of miles across the land to
Yeah,
get to
but
Toronto. I think.
you'll see him coming. So it won't be like it won't be. It'll be visually exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, so he's taken out the city. He's taken out cities. He might take a city break in Toronto at some point.
I feel like more than IMDb, we need Google Maps up here.
I'm gonna get it up. I'm gonna find it. Hang on.
While you're doing that, I'm going to propose that instead of Nick Totopoulos, because I love the name, and I want Matthew Broderick, instead of him being a nuclear or an expert in nuclear radiation or anything like that, because I don't think that's of relevance. Like as we're talking, like it doesn't make sense why they would bring in a nuclear expert to find what is essentially a runaway monster. Like at this point, do you care that he's radioactive? No, you don't seem to care he's radio. You just you're just interested in what his. You're just. It seems like they've brought him in too late. Like it's almost like he should have been involved in conversations around nuclear testing, not conversations about a runaway monster now, because it's
Yes.
too late now for the
Yeah.
nuclear expert, like, the radiation expert. He's more valuable to research in Chernobyl than he is to stopping Godzilla, like on paper, obviously he plays a valuable role in that movie, but I think instead a climate change expert or a geographer or a geologist or whatever the kind of more appropriate trade would be a better one, because actually the goal is we want to chase this creature. We've got
Mm-hmm.
creature experts, but they can't they can't do anything because this is completely new to them. But the one thing that this does seem to center around is climate change. So you tell us where he's likely to go next, or where we are likely to find the source of where he woke up from, or something, and maybe that's. I just found a way to get Baby Zillas in it naturally.
Of course you have.
While you do a two-pronged approach. While they're trying to stop Godzilla, you have another team who are trying to find where he came from, and so you're tracking the evidence of Godzilla, while at the same time we're seeing Godzilla do his thing. And then they get to the source, and it turns out he's got babies. She's got babies.
Is it babies or is it another monster?
Okay, fine. It's a family, whatever. But it's like, there you go. Now.
But could it be another kaiju?
Okay, it's another kaiju, so fine.
Could it be another kaiju and they were frozen in battle at some point?
We've been following the wrong monster.
Yeah.
There you go.
But maybe he is. I don't know. We've gone down very quickly that he's the destroyer. Is he the destroyer or is he the savior?
I think we're just doing Gareth Edwards' film then, isn't it?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We are a little bit.
Yeah. So I think he has to be the destroyer, because otherwise you lose your message. Like the thing about climate change and our own self-destruction and so on is a really interesting talking point. But if Godzilla becomes the good guy in all of this, it kind of undermines the message that he's here to slap us on the wrist.
Agreed. Agreed. So he's been thawed out. He's seeking locations of high heat and therefore high carbon. I don't think that would probably come into play. It feels a bit clicky that we'd say carbon. It's probably just heat. And he's taken them out. He's coming through and he's destroying the cities. And we're in New York thinking, oh my God. Oh, just to note, Toronto's, I think you can get there through a river, but you got to go through Quebec, Montreal, near Ottawa. Like, I don't think he'd go to Toronto.
And is the river by any chance deep? Like deep enough to
I doubt it. I doubt it. I mean, he could take out Newfoundland, couldn't he? And things like that.
Newfoundland.
Newfoundland. He could
Newfoundland.
take out Newfoundland, and he could take out Nova Scotia. There are places that he could visit that aren't as big as New York before he gets to New York, which I think would probably give it a little bit of, there's something
Okay, we're
bigger
building up.
going to
We're
happen.
building up.
Yeah,
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 we're
we're
building.
building
Okay,
up to this,
okay, yeah.
and he's taking out these places of population because they're warm, and that's what disturbed his slumber. So there's one team tracking him, going, shit, he's going towards New York, and then there's another team tracking where he's come from to try and help solve the situation. So in all this, we still need what Godzilla really needs, because that's going to lead to how they stop him. Because I don't think a few Sidewinder missiles are going to take this guy out,
Okay,
because he's
all right.
massive.
He wants to restore order to this planet, but what he needs to do is embrace change and realize that the world is a cold and abrasive place anyway, and that he needs to become one with these people and not. I'm sorry. Why are we trying to create some sort of a hero's journey for Godzilla?
No, we don't need a hero's journey for it. We need to know what he wants so we can figure out how to stop him. So he's destroying.
Isn't he? But he wants to wipe out the human race, presumably. Like, okay, he doesn't know it's the human race. He just knows it's this species, like ants to us, that have become that have infected my home in some way, and I'm going to stomp them out.
Mm. And are we? So he's just a people killer. He's just like
I don't
a
think.
Pacific Rim people killer. He's just coming out.
Yeah, I feel like that's. I feel like, yeah. I mean, I don't think. Again, I don't think Godzilla has that dimension as a character anyway. To kind of go deeper beyond that. I think it is just a case of, if you want Godzilla to be a threat to humankind, like in the Gareth Edwards films, he is an inadvertent threat to humankind, but he's actually there to keep order. And I think, he does that. He does that really well. But I think if you want the message to be, we have screwed up this planet, we don't deserve our space on this planet anymore. If that's the thesis of this film, then Godzilla has to be a people killer.
Okay, and we're not going for the inadvertent people killing.
No,
we're not going for he's hunting for Mothra's eggs.
He's not going to be seeing a person and say, "Oh, got to stomp that one out." It's going to be, I am going to go to the nest. Like the city is the nest. I'm going to destroy the nest. Like when we try to eradicate, if you see a nest of ants in your house, you don't say, "Well, I'm going to eradicate every single ant on the planet." You just say, "I'm just going to get rid of the nest that's bothering me." And I think that should be the thing. It's like, actually, you could actually do something interesting where it moves entirely past this whole state. Like, it moved through this state without ever causing any problems, because it wasn't, because that state is the greenest state in the US or something like that.
Right.
And it's like, in the same way, when I walk through a field, I'm not saying must kill every insect in this field. It's like, no, I know that this is not that everything is in order right now. I'm the disruption in this field, probably. Whereas when there's a nest of ants in my house or outside my house, I'm like, no, that shouldn't be there, because now that's disrupting. Or for me, anyway, it's disrupting my life. So I think you could do something interesting where it's like, no, we're going to target the biggest polluters almost.
So he's trying to organically bring balance by taking out the biggest settlements.
Yeah.
That's his story. Now we need to figure out how we're going to stop him and who the protagonist is, because if we have the worm guy, I don't know if he's going to be any use right now. Like, we can't have the worm guy.
Well, now he's the climate guy.
He's the climate guy.
He's the Al Gore kind of guy.
Okay, so we're gonna have a climate guy, and are we gonna have a monster guy? Are we gonna have someone who deals with
a Robert Muldoon type, or a Quint? Yes, I was gonna say Robert Shaw, isn't it? Quint.
So he's not hunted monsters before. but he's dedicated his life to finding them. Like,
Okay,
who is this guy? Who's the Quint?
he is a great white expert, and he's noticed he's been tracking great whites. Or you make Nick a great. He's the fish guy, right? And he goes, well, actually, sharks. You'll find sharks are mammals, aren't they?
No, sharks are fish.
Or
Sharks are
are
fish.
sharks fish?
He's the fish guy.
Whales are mammals, are they?
Whales are mammals.
Whales are mammals.
Yeah,
Okay. See, I'm not the guy to write this.
big fish.
So you get shark guy or whale guy? Maybe I meant to say whale. No, maybe I know. Maybe I meant to say whale. Okay, we'll go. Sharks are sexy, like for movies.
Yeah.
Whales kind of feel more like they're kind of a more romantic kind of. I don't know. Like there's a more romantic view of whales. Am I getting a bit weird now?
No, I know what you mean. Sharks are like
yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so you do. He's the shark. They call him the fish guy, and he's like, I'm the shark guy. That sounds better. And it's like but he's like, the reason I'm interested in sharks isn't because they're sharks. It's because they are being the population of sharks has changed greatly since since the climate started to change, and now now this school of sharks, or whatever you call it. What's a group of sharks? The collective noun for sharks.
Isn't it school?
Okay, and the school of sharks has now moved elsewhere, and so he's like, it stands to reason that other creatures might have moved as well. So that's why he goes on this thing. So maybe actually our Robert Muldoon character is the protagonist, like Chris Pratt, I guess, in Jurassic World.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So just for your reference, there are a number of collective nouns for a group of sharks. We've got a gam, a herd, a frenzy, which is quite nice,
like
a school, or a shiver.
And we're absolutely sure that sharks aren't mammals, right?
They're fish. Sharks are fish. I'm just gonna. There's a lot of googling this episode, John. It's like we didn't.
Yeah.
Shark.
Yeah. It turns out you're right. Yes, sharks are fish.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a million.
They're going to take my PhD away from me if I keep asking stupid questions.
It's not in marine biology though, John.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I still feel like I'm going to get penalized somewhere by the academics on high or something. Anyway,
it's all right. We could just, fingers crossed, there's no marine biologist academics watching this.
A group of mammal sharks are going to the coast of Toronto. Coastal Toronto, in order to
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
moving on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on from geography and the creatures of the sea. So sharks are coming closer to population centers as it gets warmer.
Okay, there you go.
They are. Done. So that can be a thing. Is the shark guy, and he's brought in because there's some creature attacking population centers. Initially small ones like the werewolf in them, or there's something happening out there. There was a few people killed. There was a boat taken out. Oh my God, there's a huge thing. We don't know what it is. Okay, it's a creature. It's a monster. But by the time they realize that he's involved, there's something attacking population centers, and it's classified. So he's brought in as a marine biologist that deals with the change in behavior of aggressive creatures. So he's brought in on that side of things.
And he's a guy who's not afraid to get into the water with sharks, with great whites, in the same way Chris Pratt isn't afraid to get into a paddock with a velociraptor,
Yeah, he's got some skills. He's not just
afraid,
bumbling
respectfully kind of, appropriately afraid, but not terrified.
And do we have the great white hunter? We do not. No, obviously not the great white shark hunter.
And we have a guy with a harpoon that tries to harpoon Godzilla, and it just kind of bounces off.
The elephant hunter. Are we going to have one of those type of guys in there?
Like a Pete Postlewaite character from. Can we put together like the Expendables of these character archetypes, where it's Robert Muldoon for Jurassic Park, it's Pete Postlewaite, it's Chris Pratt, it's Quint, It's just all these guys, and I'm sure who's the guy from the Terminator 2, Robert Patrick. I'm sure Robert Patrick will
Yeah,
find his way into that
yeah,
group. So he just
he'd be in there.
he always ends up joining these groups somehow, and you've just got this like, yeah, this is what it's going to take to find to find
I mean,
Godzilla.
those guys would get wiped out the first five
One by
seconds
one, they're all going to get
with
like, yeah.
their pistols, their peacemaker pistols, and they'd be gone. This thing is enormous. Like, oh, how I'm worried that we're not going to be able to get rid of this thing. Now we've built this enormous Godzilla.
We can't, can we? That's the point.
So how do we get him to leave the cities alone? What? Where are we going with this guy? So he's
okay. The only way to, you know what, we kind of need to do a research about sharks here, because you've got to have the solution linked to sharks. Like what? Okay, if you've got a shark just consuming all the food supply in one area, you introduce another shark, and that creates competition, and they end up like keeping each other at bay or something like that. I don't know. I'm making all this up, but just go with me. And then imagine he's like, we apply that same logic. We need another monster, and then the Robert Muldoon guy, you realize that the creature he saw wasn't Godzilla. It was something else.
And is he concealing that? Like,
I don't know.
How? Come on, John.
Godzilla's hard. I don't know. But okay, maybe not. Maybe no one believed him at the time. Because it's like, you saw a monster. No, you didn't. Your eyes were playing tricks on you. It was, the snow and everything was playing tricks on you. And then he's like, no, I saw something. And then you've got some arrogant military general in saying, even Muldoon saw it. And he's like, that's not what I saw, sir. It was in my report, but you didn't read my report, did you? And then like the arrogance of them all to think that this was all just the ramblings of a crazy man. And then it's like, no, what did you see? What I saw was flying, and then
how's about they go to find where it came from. They find the shelves broken off. There's another monster in there that he was fighting at the time. So their decision when he takes New York is to release that thing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, release the Kraken.
So they blast it out with charges, or they melt it out, or however they do.
They have to say release the Kraken.
They'll call it the Kraken.
I have. We link it mythologically to we have like you need a kind of a motion graphics montage of old sketches of the Kraken.
Nice.
This is so ridiculous. This is the worst episode we've ever done.
I think we're stuck in the 90s. We need these things, John. We need the Kraken.
Yeah, but we haven't even gone to Audrey yet. Hank Azaria hasn't even come into the picture yet.
Oh my god, I haven't even talked about how many Simpsons actors there are in this thing.
Yes, that's insane.
So you've got Hank Azaria, you've got Harry Shearer, and you've got Nancy Cartwright doing a cameo.
Yes, it was mad.
Why did that happen? I don't understand.
Again, this is such a 90s thing, isn't it? Like, it's almost like if Jennifer Aniston had been in it, then you would have had Courtney Cox and you would have had David Schwimmer and Matt LeBlanc that would have shown up at the end. It is ridiculous. Yeah, it's the more you say it, the more this film is
it was a weird time in movie history. I think we can salvage this. We're going to pull this over the line. I'm going to go back to the start and go to where we are, because we've got 2 or 3 things missing before we can get to the end. So we've got the something has been released from the ice because the world's warmer. They bring in the protagonist, who can still be called Nick. He's a shark guy.
That's the problem, isn't it?
It's called Nick the Shark Guy. His specialism is heightened aggression of sea creatures in climates. So great white sharks are going to more areas of population. Whatever this thing is, it's going to areas of population. It's destroying them entirely. So they know that it's an enormous thing. They don't know how big. It's classified. They're getting as many experts as they can involved. Maybe we'd have a team of, what were they called in The Predator? The loonies.
Go for it. Actually, you know what? You need you do need people who are a bit crazy actually to want to go up against any of this. So
Yeah,
go for
we've
it.
got the
Yeah.
world's craziest scientists slash hunters slash, you know, people to hunt this thing down. The government don't know what it is. It's destroying population centers. One team goes to the ice where it came from. The other team tracks it, and it's going towards New York. It's taking things out. They get a couple of sightings of it, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's massive. We're in trouble here." And the team up at the ice, they find what looks like another kaiju in the ice, and they research whatever that thing is. Godzilla goes and kicks the shit out of New York a little bit, and they are unable to stop it with anything. The shark guy says, "We need another predator," and they go, "We've got one up here. We'll release this one." They release that predator, and then we're into the third act. We've got no idea where we're going, John. We've got we've got no idea here. So we released the third. Released. It's. I think Mothra is probably a bit obvious. I think we probably wouldn't have
I'm
Mothra.
not an expert on the Godzilla creatures. I wouldn't know one from another really in terms of their names. So
So
you
King Ghidorah is the three-headed dragon, and I guess we don't need to decide. Yeah, we should we have that one? But then we go in Gareth Edwards again. They used that thing, don't they? That's how they make
we're
Mechagodzilla
in
and all that kind of
1998,
stuff.
aren't we? Because we're not concerned about filming it in New York.
Yes. Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
absolutely.
who's Gareth Edwards? I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
He was
yeah.
a child at this point.
Yeah, so no. We're with Ron Emmerich right now, you know.
Okay.
The so I think we can what would Ron Emmerich want? I think he would want the three-headed dragon, wouldn't he?
So yeah, so we take that. What about if we transport it somewhere?
No,
What?
I think you need something flying, don't you? Because I feel like it's or okay, it's what do you want? Do you want two creatures wrestling into buildings and stuff, or do you want something flying around the place and Godzilla having to use his breath, his flame?
I think if he's flying, a bit of both. We're gonna have to have some ground and some sky action because otherwise, if it's just in the sky, like he'll never get it really. But are we going to try and draw it away from New York? Are we going to try and draw that Godzilla away from New
Yeah,
York?
I think it
Could
has
they
to be. Yeah,
could they blow up the edge of the ice shelf and like tow it thousands of miles down to like Ascension Island or something to try and draw him out?
if you did it in a way where the creature's already still kind of hibernating, it could be that
Yes.
they move it.
So they move it, they drag it, and this floating
Yeah, you just see like
ice thing.
loads of Chinook helicopters carrying it across the
Ships,
Atlantic.
Chinook helicopters, just this floating piece of ice with a
And then
kaiju in it.
what do? You just drop it in the ocean. And then
Yeah.
you let nature wake it up.
Well, I don't think they'd
No.
lift it, would they? Because it'd be that big. They'd literally have to chop the ice shelf off, and ice floats. Ice doesn't sink; it floats. So they'd then drag it. They'd have to drag it
This is
somewhere.
like a science lecture for John, isn't it?
It
Like
is a little bit.
ice floats. Thank you, Brad, for that.
Sharks aren't mammals. So
Um,
yeah, so they drag that thing to a section of the ocean, a deserted island in a section of the ocean. Like, what is the?
Look, I'll worry about the practicalities of how they get it there when someone pays us to rewrite this film.
Okay, yeah, we need to get paid.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
So
problem
it's
here,
fine.
isn't it?
They get it over to New York, and then yeah, they wake up another creature. That's all we need to know, right?
So they wake up another creature, but I'm wondering whether they use it in a different part of the ocean to get him away from the population center. The creature is um the bigger thing that it wants. So Godzilla wants to fight the other alpha. So they drag it
You
out
can't
to
if you
somewhere.
bring it out to the sea, you're going to have tsunamis and stuff like that. So it has to be brought inland.
What if this is what if they make Monster Island? What if they make Monster Island by mistake in this process?
Yeah, that's
They
clever. They
they
bring it
drag it out.
to an island.
Yeah, they drag it out to an island. One of them, do they try and nuke it on the island? Like, what do they try and do?
Okay, I think it has to be set in LA because
Okay,
I don't know where that monster island is going to be. That's just not like it. I think actually, you know what? This needs to go back out to the Pacific where the nuclear testing happened to begin with.
Okay.
You know, we're going to take this back to where it all started, Bikini Atoll. No, that was way too close to. That'd be way, wouldn't it? Go back to Google Maps. Where's Bikini Atoll?
No, that's out. That's out there. I think Bikini Atoll was in the Emmerich one. I think that's what they say is
That was
the
where,
place.
yeah, that was where it was born. But they don't actually go there, do they?
No, no. You just see a thing happen, but then
It says coral
oh
reef and former nuclear site. I don't actually think the
yeah.
land
So are we?
landmass.
The thing is, we're then.
Now, Bikini Atoll doesn't have enough landmass for it to be an interesting monster island, which is essentially your sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think we would need to tow it somewhere.
Okay,
You know, there's no reason we can't break it off and then tow it for.
the Marshall Islands. Bring it to the Marshall. There's probably people on the Marshall Islands.
So Ascension Island is in the middle of nowhere, but I think that's probably. I mean, there's not that many people living in Cape Verde, is there? We could put it on there.
I feel really bad. Like I feel like we're just like displacing people for no reason. Okay, I think we bring it to a place in the south, in the North Pacific. Is it North Pacific or South Pacific?
North Pacific is up like near
Past Hawaii. Okay, we bring it out past beyond. Okay, if we're going past Hawaii, we're in the right direction, and we go so far out to a piece of land, even if it's a fictional island. We go in between Hawaii and the Philippines. We pick an island that's in the Bikini Atoll region. It's a fictional island that we've created for the purposes of Monster Island, and we're going to bring them back to where they started. And
we're going to invent Monster Island.
yeah,
we're going to bring that thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I like that.
The only thing about the Bikini Atoll, where it all began, how are we going to get? You know, he's not going to live through an ice age, is he? If he was born through.
No. But Bikini Atoll is where we woke. Like we woke up this beast initially. Oh, we didn't, did we? It was climate change.
No, it was the warming of the ocean. So I think
okay. We're bringing it out to that general region. It's a reference to Bikini Atoll, where Godzilla was born in the 1998 film, and people and the internet will go crazy. That's a nice little reference to that film that never happened. So
the idea is we're going to draw him away to an island with this other thing. I mean, the fact that Godzilla can traverse the planet anyway on the ocean, we would need to have some sort of mechanic that is going to mean he stays there. So, are they going to nuke them? Like, what's the deal here?
Well, the thing is, yeah, again, you see, this is why I'm very forgiving of Roland Emmerich's film, because it's hard to make a Godzilla film that isn't just we've lost, you know.
So I think if we've got Godzilla in LA, he's come through the Ring of Fire at the top. He's come through the sea between America and Russia. He's come down, and then he's started messing stuff up down the coast. Maybe he does take out other cities. Maybe he takes out northern cities first. And then we draw him away by breaking off the other kaiju in the ice and taking that out to an island. Now, there's no way the governments of the world aren't going to say nuke that thing when you get it far enough away from a population center. So maybe that is a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
They nuke the island, and it's called Monster Island. Like they will, the press and everyone will start to refer to it as Monster Island, because that's where we brought the creatures and we nuked the island. And the film ends with the nuclear blast, the first real, proper, significant, emotionally weighted nuclear blast in cinema. That isn't like like something out of a video game, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And because I mean, when do you ever really see a nuclear blast being used in a movie? It's always we save the day before the blast goes off. Like you make it almost like this tragic thing where it's come to this. You've got this Oppenheimer style guy who's, quotes, destroy of worlds and all that kind of stuff to make us really feel the weight of like what's about to happen here. We have not detonated a nuclear weapon in this on our planet since like however many decades ago, and we have not done it with the intention of killing something since World War II. And this is the first time where we are actually going to intentionally kill something with a nuclear bomb, and we're going to detonate it, and like there will be like a tear shed and all that kind of stuff, and you make it really powerful. And when it's over, the the rival creature, the kaiju, is dead, but Godzilla has disappeared. And you fast forward, as your film ends, you fast forward like a year later, and you have a news report. It's been 1 year since the blast on the so-called Monster Island, and there's still no sighting of Godzilla.
Mm.
And we know he's alive,
Yeah.
but it's done the job. It's kept him at bay. He's learned, like, okay, don't screw with these people. These aren't just ants, and then maybe you just see you see somebody, I don't know, before you cut the credits, you see somebody on like a radar or something like that, monitoring shipping activity or something like that, and one of the dots just disappears while while the guy goes to get a cup of coffee or something. You just see that ship that he's just been in contact with just disappear off the radar or something.
Mm.
He's out there,
So Godzilla's almost knocked out or damaged to a point where he can't continue wiping out the ants. So he
You have to
is.
recover. Like
Mm.
that nuclear blast might not kill him, but it is going to shake his bones. Like it is going to rattle him, and he's out for a while.
Nice.
Like,
Yeah.
he
So
got a punch in the face from Mike Tyson in the 90s. Like he's down for a while.
yeah.
You know,
So what one thing I did like about some of the stuff that Gareth Edwards took from the original stuff is like he did some of the weird bombs and things that, like the oxygen destroyer, that was from 95, I think. I think there was a thing in 95 that the last Tahoe one was supposed to be the last Tahoe one, and then they hated the 98 one and they went, oh no, it's not the last one, we're going to make some more now. But I think it was the oxygen destroyer. um it, are we, does it need to be a nuke? Could we go for something?
no, I think it
I
has to
don't
be.
know.
I think it has to be an old school weapon that we can understand as an audience. Like this is a tragic thing that we have to use this weapon, and you can have protesters and saying like you can't use this weapon. You cannot use a nuclear weapon. You are going down a road now. Like you've started something. Like I heard this amazing thing once where, and I've always tried to write this into a movie in some way as like a concept, but I just don't know how to make it work. And it's the idea. This was really proposed apparently to Kennedy in the '60s, where the idea was that in order for the president of the United States, of course, they didn't go through with this, but it was proposed as an idea. Um, in order for the president to press the big red button, so to speak, and launch a nuclear weapon, he must first kill an American citizen. Because until you have taken a life, you will never understand the true power that you have in your hand here and the true terror that you will unleash. And of course, that was never ever going to get picked up. But I always thought it was really interesting that the point of it was to highlight to whoever wields that power just how, like, you will never live with yourself if you press that button.
Yes.
You will
Okay. Yeah.
never ever come back from it. You will never live with yourself. Like right now we're seeing all this kind of saber rattling going on in the world, and the irony is that the people in that position, if they did press the big red button, they would hate themselves for the rest of their life. Even the worst dictator would be sickened for the rest of their lives by like what they what they were able to do.
Mm.
And we have forgotten that in cinema, I think. like cinema has kind of put this kind of soft touch to the nuke, you know, because it's always that thing that
Yeah.
Tom Cruise will stop at the moment's notice, or that Jack Ryan will save the day, you know. And there's always the good person there that won't press the button. And I just think, imagine if like you've got whoever your president is or whatever, and it's just like, I have to do this, and it sickens me that I have to do this,
So that's the horrors of nuclear war.
even though I am destroying this thing that has terrorized us, it still sickens me to have to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And how's about it's not? It could be across country. It could be a multiple country thing. You know, it could be maybe the idea is that it's a bringing together, which is a very '90s thing. You know, there was a lot of films in the '90s about the US and Russia collaborating and becoming friends, and you know that never really happened, did
You
it?
said it in,
But the
you create a political backdrop to this, where it's like Crimson Tide, where like things have not been good between our countries right now, and you know, um like any kind of show of strength can be considered a threat. And while everyone agrees, yeah, look, we need to nuke this thing, like even our enemy right now agrees we need to nuke this thing, it's not going to come without a price, us showing this strength, you know?
okay,
Like, and it's like what we Godzilla has kind of won this, actually. We might have scared him off, but he knows, whether he doesn't know, but yeah, Godzilla has kind of won, actually, because we're just one step closer to destroying ourselves now through either war or climate, you know. Um, you know.
right. I think we're cracking something here. So there's political unrest and there's global warming, and we're in the shit basically. Godzilla comes through the Bering Sea, so he goes between America and Russia, and they both understand what there's something gonna go down here. The first city he's going to hit is Vancouver, so you get your Canadian your Canadian city destroyed, and he wipes that thing out. We get a full wipeout in the beginning of the second act. We have a city destroyed, and there is no defense against him. So we go to San Francisco. This is when they decide they need to take the other kaiju at the ice. They take it down to one of the islands in the South Pacific or the North Pacific or wherever they can. There's a kaiju fight. That'd be quite cool. There's a kaiju fight, and they nuke it. They nuke it to pieces. They absolutely annihilate the island. You know, it's like scorched earth. Everyone is sad that they've had to do that. Politically, it has done some healing. The planet is probably going to take a while to recover from that damage, um, but something's happening on this island. I think we need a hook here at the end. So yes, Godzilla could have gone missing, but would he just be like swimming about, you know, with his arm in a cast? Like what would he be doing? Is there any way we can seed that island? Can we seed that island with the carcass of Godzilla, or you know, what can we do?
I've got it. Forget Monster Island. Monster Island is just, it's this place that we brought them to, and it was nuked, and you know, that's how people, like, what was the name of the place where the nuke went off? It was Monster Island. Everyone just calls it Monster Island because it's the TikTok generation. Oh, it's not. It's 1998. Okay. Well, they don't have Google Maps, so no one's gonna be able to check where it was. So they just say Monster Island. There you go. Okay. It turns out that the Russians in Siberia have a creature in a facility, in a block of ice, that they found years ago, and they've been playing dumb the whole time, and they're trying to weaponize it. And it's like, you know,
Okay, yeah.
and it ties into the political unrest, you know, like the Russians and
Mm.
the Americans are saber rattling since it's first time since Cuban Missile Crisis. You know, the worst thing for America to do right now would be show of strength, but we got to do a show of strength if we want to stop, if we want to like destroy these creatures on this island. And we've done it. We've killed one of them. We've got scared Godzilla off. You know, he'll be back someday, but we've bought ourselves some time. And fast forward a year later, tensions have seemed to ease between the Russians and the Americans. It seems okay, we're okay. It's been a year, no sightings of Godzilla, everything's fine. And then in Siberia, there's an underground research facility, and there's your two-headed dragon in the ice or something like that.
Mm. Nice. Right, I'm going to go back to the beginning and we'll run through it because this has been hard. It's been hard to redo a 90s film because you keep going. I think we keep ending up in like cheese. It's struggling to do it. Okay, so we start off, and this film is going to be focused on the warming of the planet. It's not a nuclear thing; it's the warming of the planet. Although we will have nuclear thing later on. Something has been hunting. A huge creature has been hunting. They don't know how big in the North Atlantic, in the North Pacific Sea. There's something going on there. So they send one team to track whatever the creature is. They're trying to find it, and another team to check out in the ice what's been going on. Well, they're tracking that creature. It takes out Toronto. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. Vancouver, sorry. Yeah, Toronto's landlocked. Vancouver, it completely wipes it out. In our team, we've got the shark guy who knows about predators, seafaring predators going to warmer environments and showing more aggression. We've also got the hunters. We've got marine biologists. Who are these guys? We haven't discussed yet. We've got a bunch of guys.
They're just everything we love about these characters in movies, and they've all got their advice, and they're all going to do different, and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty.
Yes.
I don't know.
And then, okay, and then we've got, so the team find the kaiju in the ice. Shark guy comes up with a theory that they can use that as bait to get them away from population centers. It starts to attack San Francisco as they're getting this thing out. So then they have to take it to the middle of the Pacific Ocean before it completely levels San Francisco because they're defenseless. They're trying stuff. They've got tanks and helicopters, and they're just getting wiped out. Traditional Godzilla stuff. Then they break this thing out the ice on what will be known as Monster Island. Yes,
and the team, because they're experts, they kind of in a kind of a, I don't know, conflicted way have to torture the creature so it cries out or something, and Godzilla is able to sense its presence.
Okay,
and it's like they know how to get it to call for help, kind of, that kind of thing, or whatever.
Right. So they torture this thing, which enrages it, and then Godzilla goes to Monster Island, and they have a massive fight, and then the countries nuke the island, like scorched earth, completely flatten it. They find the remains of one, but the other ones the Godzilla's never found, so it's a mystery to the people, to the government. We have an extra little kicker at the end that Russia have been they knew all along, and they've got their own kaiju they removed from the ice. They're trying to figure out how to weaponize it. They try and wake it up. Now they've seen how they work, and there's a blip in the ocean, and Godzilla's awake, and it's he comes in.
Cut the credits. Yeah.
Oh my god, that was hard.
I love it. I love this. I think it's amazing. I do feel like we've created a Gareth Edwards movie.
We've created a Gareth Edwards movie, and we've taken out any humour or fun from the original.
And the cast of The Simpsons aren't in it. We do need.
We could get Nancy.
We do need. Well, I was going to say we need a few references in this, so we're going to have an Independence Day poster in someone's room. We're going to have somebody watching The Simpsons, like, or one of our Robert Muldoon guys. His passion is watching classic Simpsons, which wouldn't be.
And his favorite episode is the one with Jub the iguana.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, Jub the iguana. That's it. And now we've got the iguana in, and it's a Simpsons reference all in one. And and somebody else is a fan of a team that plays in Madison Square Garden. And yeah, I love it. I think that's really great. Yeah, print it.
So that's our Easter egg list as well. Right, thank you, John, and thank you everyone for listening. So this has been the Great Hollywood Rewrite. We're part of the script department. You can find us on social. You can find us on. You can find us where you get all of your podcasts. Any good podcast platform, we are on there. So please give us a like and give us a subscribe. It will certainly help us out.
do check out Stepping into Frame, Women in Screenwriting. We just launched a new podcast series today led by Fiona Georgia Hunt. And yeah, it's going to be some really good episodes there on that as well.
They just reviewed Blonde as I think,
Yeah.
which was I think that was awesome. You were on that one, weren't you, John?
Yeah, we were not fans of it.
Yeah, I've heard mixed to negative reviews, but maybe we'll rewrite that another time. So if any,
yeah, that would actually be a good challenge. Actually,
yeah, we'll try and rewrite Blonde next time. So if anyone's got any suggestions of films or TV shows that you want us to take a look at next week, hit us up in the comments or just message us directly. We look forward to hearing what you come up with. Nice one.